Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a doctor in mind and body health connection and mental health coaching, no other than Mr. Jad Wehbe.
Hi.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Jad, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
So, my journey started as a physical therapist and osteopath, and then I studied Chinese medicine, which is one of the culture from a medical perspective that dive deeply into the mind and body connection, just like the Indian culture. And when I dived into that, I noticed the importance of the emotions and the mental health and the mind on the body and vice versa. And since then, after that, I started diving more into the mental health tools, and I started combining many tools together. And that's why my favorite way to approach mental and physical health and the mind and body connection through blending tools. So I started diving into CBT, acceptance-based therapy, childhood trauma therapy, breathwork therapy, and hypnotherapy for sure, and blending it all together in a nutshell.
Mr. Jad Wehbe, thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about mental health and leadership. And how do undiagnosed mental health struggles most commonly undermine a leader's decision making or team dynamics?
Yeah. Listen, that's such a big topic, and I know we're short on time, so I'm going to try to go straight to the point. It's very important to understand that a leader that the risk perception, let's call it. I'm going to take 2 points. The risk perception and capacity to take feedback and empathy as a third one. Okay, so the risk perception, when a leader, and especially now, I can tell you a story with big industries now having a lot of changes with the AI getting into the market and impacting the way their industry is in. And I'm sure many industries are struggling with how to use AI and how AI is impacting their industry. So a lot of CEOs are in this big decision position and seeing things and managing and calculating the risk is an important cognitive component. And the risk perception changes from a person to another. So if you see things as a high risk or a low risk, it has nothing to do with the real risk, because you might see something and consider it as a high risk, and I might see it and see it as a low risk. So it's very subjective, and there's a lens that would distort the reality for leaders and make them see low risk and high risk. And this will drive and impact hugely their decision making. And the risk impact and the risk perception is related to emotional state, mental state, high anxiety. CEO with perfectionism traits, let's say, would score high on risk perception or on seeing risk above the average or be above the reality, and would take safe decisions. On the contrary, sometimes we have traits of personality that would reduce risks. For example, a CEO who has these tendencies of being self-centered and having hard time taking criticism and taking criticism and implementing them and questioning themselves might fall into super low risk perception. So they might be blindsided and not acknowledge risks, even when they are risks. And this can impact a big decision making with what's happening now in the world and how AI, as an example, is changing many industries. So this is an example how a personality trait, which is a part of the mental health, can impact a risk perception, can impact a huge decision in a fast and changing world, and can impact a whole company with hundreds of people in it. That's an example. Another example, capacity to take feedback. And you notice how these 2 points are connected together, since the person who cannot take positive feedback will have these tendencies to be self-centered and consider themselves superior and above others and above their team. They would always put themselves on a pedestal and consider themselves superior internally. I'm talking between them and themselves at a very deep subconscious level. So the capacity to take feedback and to acknowledge feedback and to acknowledge the struggle of the team and listen deeply to their team and acknowledge their feeling, their emotion, their difficulties, what they see, what is their opinion, and their peers also at the same time, would be in a complicated place, because not being able to take positive feedback would first enable a lot of toxic behaviors and dynamic within the team on one hand, and on the other hand might keep some blind spots in the decision-making process. So yes, 2 quick examples really. I don't know how deep you want to dive into each one, so I'll follow your rhythm.
Very well said, Mr. Jad. Very well said. How do leaders share mental health challenges authentically without eroding team confidence?
Well, that's such a good question. Listen, there is a symptom that, when you see someone, let's say I see you and you're talking about your mental health difficulties and you're doing some self-disclosure and talking about your vulnerable state. When I see you do it, me as an external person, I see, whoa, Daniel is really strong and courageous and showing resilience. But when I imagine myself doing it, I think poorly about myself. I think that I'll be projecting a poor image of myself, and that is really says something bad about myself. So when we see others doing and doing self-disclosure into vulnerability and talking about vulnerability, which is one of them is the mental state of us, we tend to see it positive. So what I always invite people to do is that when you see someone doing it, you see it positive. You see, oh, this is courageous. This is good, right? So why would you treat yourself and consider yourself lesser than others? So that's the first thing to do. Second thing to do, mental health and strength towards success, capacity to succeed. And I doubt any person would be able to disagree with that. There's no way to success without going through failures, right? Hence the famous quotes, I failed my way to success. So we need to do mistakes. We need to fail again and again and again. And then we need to develop this capacity to learn from the mistakes and the resilience to stand up, using those lessons from those mistakes, using them to stand up and to move forward and repeat the process. So falling along the way of success and being resilient, the grit, the capacity to stand up, is what makes us successful. It's what will make any entrepreneurship or CEO or any executive manager strong, is the resilience. It's not the absence of weakness, but it's the capacity to use weakness positively, to use weakness as room for improvement. Okay, why? But I cannot improve something I don't admit its existence, right? So I cannot say I'm going to improve this if I don't accept that it's a weak thing I have. I want to improve it. So admitting that there is weaknesses, that we are vulnerable, isn't a weakness, it's a strength, and it's a must. Just like we accepted failures through our journey, we need to accept that resilience is what makes us really strong. And to be resilient, we need to learn from the mistake. To learn from the mistakes, we need to admit them. We need to accept our weaknesses. And when we do this, when we show vulnerability, and when a leader is capable to show vulnerability, it has this magic effect on the team, because it's allowing everyone to show vulnerability and to open up, because we all do have these vulnerable spots in us and weaknesses. So when you nurture such an environment, you allow openness and you allow vulnerability. What you're allowing actually is deep bonding between the leader and the team, and between the team partner, the team partner themselves. So it creates an amazing bond. And what we know is that efficient teams with high stakes, the better they have this emotional bond between them, which would nurture empathy. These are the most successful teams. They know how to do teamwork. They know how to work under pressure because they support each other. They know there's no judgment between themselves and each other because they are nurturing this vulnerability between themselves. I don't know if I answered you or I went a bit off topic. Bring me back.
Very,
Bring me back.
and very well said, Mr. Jad. Truly, truly amazing and empowering answer. So let's talk about the impact on key leadership skills. How does chronic stress or anxiety distort risk assessment or strategic clarity?
Okay, so first, when a leader is under stress and under pressure, what will happen is that the fight or flight, that famous fight or flight mode, will be triggered, and they would be in an alert mode. When we are in an alert mode, we're only looking for danger and how we can prevent danger. We cannot see in a leader mental capacity, neurological capacity, not just cognitive capacity, but really neurological capacities to think growth. When you are in a fight or flight mode, technically, you cannot think growth. You cannot see through. You cannot think long term. You're thinking now. You're thinking short term. You're thinking zoom in. You're thinking fighting. Okay? So stress would enable the fight or flight mode, which in Chinese medicine, it's called the yang energy, right? So this yang energy, the fight or flight mode, this adrenaline, this cortisol rush in the bloodstream would decrease the cognitive and mental capacity, would decrease the capacity of problem solving, would decrease the capacity to listen and to see with a clear vision. It would impact even the brain waves. It's so neurological and physiological that it's very hard to bypass it. So the main thing is for a leader and an executive position is to learn how to regulate their nervous system, therefore regulate their emotions. In order to do so, again, they need to be aware, they need to have that knowledge that I might be in a fight or flight mode due to those triggers. These triggers, for example, financial insecurity. A leader struggling who had traumas in the past with financial insecurity, they might be deeply triggered with critical financial situation of their company and might be going for quick, safe fight or flight mode, safe decisions without really trying to make the best out of the situation. Their judgment would be clouded due to their past traumas and history of financial insecurity, and they won't be able to make the best decisions. So they need to realize that concept that they have triggers, they have weak points, their past, their childhood, their traumas, their relationship are all there inside of them, inside their mind, and interact the way they see things and they interact emotionally with things. So they need to learn that first. And sometimes with some people, that's a hard pill to swallow. They refuse to admit that they have traumas and wounds and weaknesses. But when they do, magic can happen. They can realize, oh, these triggers, I see numbers, and these numbers are triggering my financial insecurity. So, and I notice that I'm in a fight or flight mode. The magic happens when they start realizing that. So then They can regulate their emotions. They can use breathing techniques. They can use affirmations. They can use, you can put ChatGPT on and say, okay, I have a trigger and my financial insecurity is being triggered by this situation. Give me tips and tools to regulate my emotions, and you're going to get the answer. But the ChatGPT can't do the analysis for you, cannot help you be aware of that, right? So ChatGPT or any AI tool, and I'm all for using it in a smart way, but with knowledge, with self-awareness, right? So once you are aware, it's just about searching for tools and doing 5 minutes breathing, then eventually connecting with a coach, with a therapist to do some, trauma healing. And then it's a few weeks and sometimes few months. And you can regulate all these things. Once you regulate that, your decision-making process will change. I'll tell you a story. And I know in your podcast, you love storytelling. And I'm going to tell you a
Yes.
story. A client of mine who works in an industry that is bigly impacted by AI, hugely impacted by it. And they are on the front of making huge, big decision that's going to impact their whole company with around 100, employees. So for her, she was seeing that it's impossible for her to embrace AI tools and to bring on the team AI specialists. It was against her because she comes from a school that these things need to be done this way. It's done A, B, C, and she was so rigid about it. And if you tell her, let's do things in another way, X, Y, Z, change is, she cannot imagine that. She preferred to leave the industry than do that. And she's in a decision-making position. So what was her trigger is that she struggled on the personal life, in the intimate and personal life. And what was happening is that her life became about work. She started identifying as who I am. I am this person who works in this. I am what I do. I am my profession. And her identity became her profession. So when everything about you becomes what you do, you become so rigid about it because changing it has become changing yourself. And she had to learn that with pains and wounds and traumas along the way, she lost bits and pieces of different sections of her life into her work, and her work became her identity. So she learned to zoom out and to see her life through a bigger lens, through a zoom out lens. And she started to say, oh, I'm not just my work. I have other things and I am much bigger than just my work. And she started making a better work-life balance and investing more time and effort and emotion in other sections of her life, in her personal life, in her intimate life, in her hobbies, in her creativity, in etc. And then the section of work came back to its normal proportion in the big pie of her life, right? So then she was, I can be more flexible now, right? The more we are rigid, the more we feel insecure. So now she felt, okay, I can change that aspect. I can be more flexible now. And she accepted to integrate and implement AI in her company. And 3 months after that, the company was in an amazing position, but she was on the verge to refuse everything and to shut down.
Mr. Jad, as a doctor in mind and healthy connection and mental health coaching, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
As a body health and mental health coach, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Me, myself.
Yes.
Okay, okay, that was unexpected. Myself. Okay, that's a big question. Didn't expect that one. Listen, I'm an advocate of teaching mental health, and I see the importance of mental health in everything. I worked on myself and my capacity to work on my public speaking skills because I was a shy person originally, and it wasn't very easy for me to enter that world of podcast, and I had to work a lot on myself to train on public speaking and speak in public. I was trained mostly to teach in classes, and I thought it was the same thing, but it wasn't. And I was trained to work one-on-one, and it's not at all the same thing when you speak in public and you know hundreds and millions of people are listening to you. And I remember my first TV interview, I was almost stuttering from fear. And I had to work a lot, and I realized that in every section of each one's life, mental health will impact us. Mental health would impact how we choose our partner, how we communicate in our intimate relationship, how we choose our career, how fast or slow we grow in our career. It's going to impact our social connections, our social circles, which there will impact our career growth and impact on our mental health, and would impact our capacity to meet the partner we're looking for, because now most of meetings are happening online, and it's not the same just like it was done long time before. And I always encourage my clients to go and to connect and to grow their social circles, to train their social muscles again, and to meet new people and then meet their partner eventually through social connections, which is a much more authentic and organic way to meet a partner. But mental health limitations and ignorance can hinder this process, and it can hinder so many aspects in our life: the way we parent, the way we talk, everything, literally everything, the way we manage money, how much successfully we are financially. So my long-term goal is, and I'm going to tell you my short-term goal based on the long-term one. My long-term goal is technically to have every family and every person learn and invest time and effort in learning about mental health and being able to assess themselves on the mental health state. Every person being able to know, what are my personality traits, what are my weak points in my mental health, and how these weak points and potential blind spots are impacting all aspects of my life. That's my long-term goal. My short-term goal is to create more podcasts, educational podcasts like this amazing one, more educational materials. That's why we have the YouTube channel and we offer free online courses. It's the YouTube channel of the Bridge Institute. You'll see it on the website you just shared. There's the YouTube channel. We offer free courses to teach and educate people. Definitely there are always more advanced courses that you need to pay for, but sometimes going through the free courses and reading the right books and being coached with reading the right books can do it. Definitely, if you want to go to super levels, there are courses. So creating more courses, creating more content, creating more podcasts. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Creating all these materials and being able to find ways to keep on reaching out and improving our capacities to reach out for more and more people at the Bridge Institute, and eventually collaborating with others, because what's at stake, I deeply believe it's very big. So we need to collaborate together in order to maximize the reachability of mental health content and make it accessible to everyone and convince everyone that they need it, which, the theory of everything in the marketing concept, when I read it the first time, it was an eye-opener. So yeah, technically everyone needs to learn about mental health and invest time and effort in their own way to be self-aware and to work on what they see and what they notice. But no one and few people realize that they need it, but technically everyone needs it. So these are my long and short-term goals. And thank you for this question, by the way. I've been rarely asked this question.
Good luck,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jad.
That's an impossible mission.
Yes, good luck and looking forward for more success. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, which is abstract essay. Wait, just give me a minute because I am checking my my abstract essay in its fifth season. People, fifth season, and my abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101
Wow.
in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in fourth season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. And Mr. Jad, can you please recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Well, that's always a tough question. And, I always like to challenge mainstream books, and I would recommend The Power of Negative Thinking.
Yes, definitely.
In
The
opposition
power.
to positive thinking and the books that would, uh, you know, market positive thinking and the power of positive thinking. Negative thinking is powerful too, but we need to know how to use it properly.
Definitely. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Learn, keep learning, be able and allow negative feedback and be able to do negative feedback, but just don't fall into too much negative feedback. You need to know how to balance negative feedback and how to balance your capacity to take negative feedback. If you take negative feedback and the right dose, you can grow and keep learning through the negative feedback. If you refuse to take it, you fall into the blind spot. If you overtake it and take it too personal and feel guilty and blame yourself and think poorly about yourself because of it, it's going to drain you and deplete you. You know how to balance the intake of negative feedback and use it positively.
Mr. Jad Wehbe, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world.
Thank you for having me as a guest in your amazing podcast and this amazing list of podcasts. I'm amazed of how multi-talented you are. That's really amazing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jad. And can you please invite our listeners to support your coaching, your advocacy, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Follow our Instagram, The Bridge Institute. Check our website. Check our free materials on YouTube. Join us to spread knowledge about mental health and the importance of it.
Yes, people, support Mr. Jad Wehbe because if you support him, more and more and more empowering courses to come for sure, more and more empowering advocacy for sure to come, and of course, more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Mr. Jad, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, really.
More to come, people. See you soon.